Hey guys, we're back with another episode of the S Method podcast. Strong, sexy, successful. And I started this podcast with the mission to bring women together from all across the globe to support and empower each other with their stories that enable them to make decisions in their lives that enable them to be strong, sexy, successful, and of course, unapologetic with whatever choices they make. You know, a lot of us have fear when we're making decisions. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn from others who have done it and follow in their footsteps in ways that we want to. So the personal stories and expertise of the guests on this podcast will bring such fire and value. We'll have a little bit of fun and we'll be lively and entertaining. And sometimes we're going to talk about some uncomfortable things, sometimes risque, sometimes things that hit close to home. But this is all in love to teach you how you can indeed handle it all, from optimal health to mindset to a killer physique, but also have the confidence in beauty, in your business, and to really hear from these top female professionals on their advice, how they moved into entrepreneurship, how they handled their relationships, and even moms and other unsung heroes that you may have never heard about. And we're going to learn all about their secret sauce and their experiences that help them rise to success. So I want to introduce to you Meghan. She's of TURQUOISE Floating Yoga down here in Miami. We were so generously connected by a friend named Kevin through an initiative called Beach Fit Miami, where a bunch of fitness professionals got together to bring the best of the best during spring break and change the culture of spring break in Miami. And then COVID hit. So luckily I got to present a class right before the virus shut us down. But even more luckily, I got to connect with some amazing fitness professionals. And so I want Meghan to introduce herself to you all. We're going to talk a lot today about her transition into going from glitz and glamour of her former profession to the beauty of what she does now. Go ahead, Meghan, all you.
Thank you for that introduction, Christina. Thank you for having me on.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, I am the owner and yoga teacher for TURQUOISE Floating Yoga. And my mission is to help women relax and flow in nature so they can let go of their stress and they can just start to shift towards a little bit more happiness, a little bit more calm, and just towards living their best lives.
I love the fact that it's just jumping off of you. Like, you've got blue hair. It's so calming. I bought a turquoise couch cover because to me, that was something that was going to ground me in my new apartment. I've got the red hair going. So I've got this like yin and yang going of like fire and water over there. But tell us a little bit about what made you like come up with turquoise floating yoga. What was the drive behind it?
It was just this feeling that I wanted to do it. And it was just, it started as a little inkling and it just grew from there. So I switched careers a few times along the way. I did not come out the gate as a paddleboard yoga teacher or a yoga teacher or even a health professional in any way. My undergrad was apparel design and fashion merchandising. I spent 2 years in the fashion industry. So completely shifted from that. And then I spent 10 years teaching high school math. So
Wow.
I was just on a long journey of all of that time of finding myself and just going from listening to what I needed to do and what I wanted in my life and just slowly aligning myself with those things until it became something that I had to do.
This is awesome. And I think a lot of women out there who may be stuck in the corporate world or the employment space where they're just feeling like, you know, this is not my passion. They stopped caring about the money they were making. They stopped caring about the notoriety or the glitz and glamour of what they were doing. And they're just like, I gotta do something. I think they'll really benefit from hearing your story. And, you know, just to show you an example or to explain an example of how this resonates with me, when I first met Meghan, we were, you know, planning the Beach Fit Miami thing that got squashed. Hopefully we get to bring it back after this COVID stuff is over. But when we first met, like, I think you are brought together with people that you are meant to meet for a thing in your life that you're missing. And I knew at that time I had not taken action on things I wanted to do. I didn't really make the effort to grow my business the way I am now. I didn't make the effort to do this podcast. We talked about this in August. Now it's February and it's like, okay, like I just had to put my foot down and be like, I love this stuff and it's going to happen. And I feel like a lot of women that are trying to make that switch, that, you know, we get stuck in roles, whether it's a gender role that we think we have to do this, or whether it's a career role that we think we're stuck and we don't have options. And you know, I don't want to stereotype, but I feel like for a woman to step out and finally like give up something that maybe 3, 4, 500 other people would be salivating to have that job or that position, and just be like, no, there's power in no, and this no longer serves me. I don't care who wants what I have. I want my own piece. So I would love for you to share, like, talk about, because when we talked about this earlier, I said to her, guys, I was like, so you were that girl from Devil Wears Prada, the movie. Talk about what it was like in the fashion industry. And, you know, it's not about bashing the fashion industry, because everybody has their own passions. But what was it like? And at what point were you like, this is not what I want to do? Even though everyone's probably looking at you like, wow, you got that new bag, you got that new thing, you got this, you got that, you got these people, you got limos, you got events. Like, how like, talk about the process, because this is the beauty of what you do now.
Sure. Well, I think there's that little bit of a gap between what you think you're going to do. When you're in school for something, you have complete creative freedom and you're, you know, drawing these things and you're sewing these designs and you're doing all this cool stuff. So I think I very much had the illusion of, you know, I'm going to go into this role and I'm going to get to be creative and I'm going to get to do fun things. And then the reality of it is, okay, well, you're the assistant and just draw this sketch for somebody else and, you know, tell this person to make it. And, you know, the reality of it is very different from what you think you're training for or the creativity that you want to have. And then, you know, just the reality of, okay, it's a desk job and, you know, there's different things that you have to coordinate. And I just slowly started feeling like, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. But for a long time, I was trying to persevere through that because, you know, when you go to school for something and you spend all this time and all of this money to get the degree and to get your foot in the door, you feel like, okay, I have to do this because my last 4 years of my life have been about this and about getting the job in this and interning so I could get this job. So you do have that moment of like, who am I to give this up? Or who am I to say, wait a minute, this isn't the exact thing that I want. But I think for me, I never saw myself as somebody where my job would be my whole life. I always wanted to have a relationship. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to have other things that I did in my life. So in that job, it was very much, okay, you're here until 11 o'clock tonight because we've got market and we need to do all these things to get ready. And you would just cancel all your plans. And I really was looking at myself and I was thinking, I'm going to have a career, but I'm not going to have a life. So that's
powerful.
when, yeah. And, you know, at that time, I was 2 years out of college. I was still really young. I'm 22, 23. And I'm thinking, how do I make a life out of this? You know?
Yeah.
And that's actually when I made the first change. So I moved from the fashion industry to actually teaching math at that time, not teaching yoga quite yet. So that's when I moved into the classroom. I actually got my master's in education and, you know, I worked really hard to make that transition. And that was a really good move for me at the time because I got to have a much better work-life balance. I had, you know, weekends off and summers off. And I also got to feel like I'm helping people with what I'm doing. I'm actually working with students. I'm providing some guidance and you know, a net positive in the world was always something that was really important to me. How do I make sure that what I'm doing is good for people? It's not just earning me money. It's also helping and contributing in some way what I have to offer. But even with that, you know, my yoga journey started actually when I was in the fashion industry. I was really stressed out in that job. And so I just started going to yoga classes on a regular basis. I was working in New York City, so there was amazing yoga studios and around every corner. And so I would just go and, go to different yoga classes before I took the train home. And I slowly started stepping into that practice of, at first it was just, okay, physical practice for me. And then slowly I started meditating and just dropping a little bit more into slowing down and going within and starting to learn who I really was inside. And this is actually a really big yoga topic that I could talk about for like 3 hours, but I'll try to break it down into like 30 seconds. Is basically the difference between how you identify externally versus internally. So I think in this world that we live in, we are so externally motivated and we identify in that way. We think, I am my job, right? I am a teacher. I am a designer. We think I am my relationship, right? Like I'm a wife or I'm a girlfriend or whatever it is. We think we are our bank account. We think we are our clothes. And so like all of these external things that are really outside us, if that's all you have, then you are going to be really afraid to make that change because you're going to feel like, well, if I give up this job, who am I? Or if I give up this relationship, who am I outside of it? But I think just doing so much yoga, my practice grew and I guess my spirituality grew in a way with that too, where I started to realize like, okay, these are things that I do and I can have different interests and different jobs and different relationships, but none of that is who I am. So who I am is this person on the inside, and that's not going to change based on, the roles that I take on or where I decide to go. So, all of that growing and, as much as I love teaching and I really did love working with the students, it is stressful too. And it has different things. And I just got to the point where I was just trying to balance because on the one hand, I did feel like I was providing value, but on the other hand, I wanted to help in a different way. And I wish that I could go to school and talk more about mindfulness or yoga or, taking time to figure out who you are, even if that means not going to college. But it's a little bit tough as a classroom teacher. It's like, this is what you're allowed to say. And, this
Right.
is what you have to, stick to the state curriculum and you have to stick to these things. And so that was getting to be a little bit of a challenging balance for me because I wanted to be like, it's okay that you failed this test because,
I don't want to hear that.
It's like that quote about judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. And, I wanted to be like, it's okay. Like, yes, math is important. And yes, you should learn some things, but there's so many more things that you're good at. And, it was just getting hard to balance what I needed to say and what I needed to deliver on the importance of math as a math teacher versus what I was feeling in my heart as wanting to also just be yourself and learn who you are and, all of that. So I probably would have had a little bit of a hard time making the jump. I was starting to feel like, I'm going to do a yoga teacher training just for myself. I'm going to do it just to go deeper, to learn more about it. Because when you go to yoga classes, you typically learn a lot about the physical practice. You learn about alignment, where to put your arms and all of that. But you don't typically, at least in the classes that I had been going to, get to go really deep on the spiritual side. And you don't really get to learn, why we're doing this or even the deeper meditation side from, okay, Shavasana is great for, relax for a few minutes. So I wanted to just learn more about it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do this over a summer when I have a break, or maybe this will be like my side gig or just for fun. And then I went to Ecuador and I spent a month in Ecuador doing my yoga teacher training. And I was just all in. I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I feel really driven to. And it kind of just, everything started aligning because I had the opportunity to move to Miami, and it was like, okay, if I have to move, then I'm getting a new job anyway. So instead of going back and getting another classroom job, I'm going to start my own business. And I had surfed. I had grown up surfing and dancing. So, I kind of had the background with that a little bit, so that when I did my yoga teacher training, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to start putting together everything that I need to learn to make this business work. So I'm going to go do a self yoga teacher training and a lifeguard training, and I'll become a paddle instructor, and just kind of putting all the pieces together that I knew I would need to serve with integrity and to be able to really offer my clients like a safe and really, really fun experience.
So what was the hardest part? Because, you know, corporate, and whether it was the external validation you got from something that looked glamorous to the regimented 9 to 5, so to speak, or 7 to 3 of teaching, like, what was the hardest part? Like, did you get feedback from people that are like, no? Because entrepreneurship is something that we don't know really how much of a roller coaster it is till we're in it. So not only did you probably learn lessons like through your own experience, but what kind of like, did you get pushback from people? Did you like, what roadblocks did you have?
Well, I mean, luckily for me, I was at this point where I was starting to not care so much about that feedback. And I think that helped a lot, because I think if I was internalizing every piece of it, I probably would have been paralyzed with fear, because, you know, I think as humans, we have the tendency to look at what we're giving up more than we look at what we could gain. Or even, and I mean, even as if you go for something and maybe you fall flat on your face and you fail, maybe my business would have been out of business in 6 months. If that had happened, at least I could have said, I gave it a try. I did this thing, and I'm not going to regret that I didn't try it. So I had to be okay with that. I think I had to be okay with, I know this sounds crazy. Yeah. And you know, the feedback was all over the spectrum. I know that was the original question, was about the feedback. I had some people that were really supportive. Actually, my best friend who lives in Philly is an entrepreneur, and her business partner were like, we're so excited for you. And she's like, I'm going to do a photo shoot for you. And her business partner's like, I'm going to make your logo. And they literally had my back. And so I had a lot of people like that in my life that were like, how can we help you? How can we support you? We're so excited for you, which it means the world to you.
It does.
Me, especially when you're in that space of like, am I crazy? What am I doing? And then, of course, I also had people in my life that were like, are you sure you want to give up teaching? You're giving up a contract that you worked really hard for. You have tenure, you have pension, you have all these things that took you years to get to this level. And so you don't take that lightly, because obviously that's something that matters in this world. But I think it was just, I was just like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to see how it goes. And I'm really, really grateful that I did, because it's grown me as a person as well as it growing my business. I think I'm a completely different person. And I think I just have more that I've learned about myself and about the world in this process that I never would have learned. I would have just been closed off to had I not taken the jump and taken the risk.
Let's dive into that real quick, because I knew when I call this my brass balls moment, right? When I had my brass balls moment to say, F this, I'm leaving the job that I was at, because as I kind of explained before, like I was like on the ledge, and one foot was like kind of wanting to dip into the water, and then I would just would go back, and then I'd be like, oh, let me just like sort of get a little closer, and then it wasn't until like the crescendo of like, I can't take it anymore, that was like literally the foot to my butt that was just like, just jump and open your parachute on the way down kind of thing. Conceptually, from the brass balls perspective, right? It's a huge, courageous thing. And I had a ton of people in my situation that were also college strength coaches that said, oh my God, you did it. Oh my God, you did it. Okay. At that time, when they were calling me and they were like, how is it? Oh my God, like, I admire you, blah, 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 blah. I didn't have a thing figured out. Like, I knew, oh, like, I'm going to move to Miami. And I knew, oh, well, I kind of have like a job situation, which didn't pan out, because again, just like the way you described, your creativity is stifled when you think you're going into something, being able to create and produce and innovate, and then you have to fit into a box. of what a company says, well, this is how we do it here. So earn your stripes, homie. And like, it wasn't sitting well with me. So when I finally even cut that, so moving to Miami was the first thing. Then I cut the tie from the security of what could have been in another box. I was like, I'm not a box person. I'm not a box. I was like, oh God, well, I left the box for the roller coaster. And now, like, oh God, I don't have it figured out. So what are some of the hard lessons? Like, I know what I learned. I learned that to run an online business, because what we do, like, I do some things in person, but mostly online. I learned that to run an online business, forget it. It was one thing being in a competitive space in person and you have a logo on your chest and you get sort of like street cred for this and that. But when you open yourself to the entire World Wide Web, it is a slap in the face. It is like, boom, how are you going to separate yourself? And I was like, shit. So when you said paralyzed with fear, like that was me for probably the first year and a half that I was in Miami. Now, explain a little bit about what your daily life is. Like you get up, you do this, you do that. Like you're working with people serenely on the water, I'm sure, and you get to help them with their yoga practice. But what was like that hard lesson when you jumped into entrepreneurship and like once you're past the honeymoon phase of excitement, what did you learn that you were like, oh snap, didn't know this was part of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, so many things, where to start. But honestly, I think for me, having to put myself out there was a really scary thing because, you know, when you're a teacher or when you're in a corporate job, you're not worried about necessarily getting the clients, right? The students show up in your classroom, they're assigned to you.
Got no choice.
Like, here's your, you know, like, so you don't have to, you know, put yourself out there and what's your message and what are you going to say? You're kind of just like, okay. And you show up and you cultivate those relationships and you do the best you can. But I think, and this is really naive, but I think like when I first opened my business and like, I was so excited and I loved paddleboard yoga and I knew it was so much fun that I was like, great, I'm going to offer these paddleboard yoga classes and everyone's going to want to come and it's going to be so much fun. And then it's like, I would post the classes up and like, nobody would sign up. And I was like, oh, you know, like I guess.
But I love this. You should love it too.
Exactly. And it was crickets. It was crickets at first. And I mean, it has a lot to do with, I mean, I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to let anyone know that these classes were happening. They're just like up on this random website that no one's looking at. Like that's not really a great way to go out there. So, you know, I had to really learn all of those things about, okay, well, it's not good enough to have a great class that I believe in or something that I want to offer. If nobody knows about it, it's not benefiting anybody. So, which sounds really, really obvious, but coming from someone with like no marketing, no sales background, I was like, oh, okay, well, I have to figure out how to put this in front of the people that would want to do it. And so I think that like, and then even having to post to Instagram, and when you don't have an ad budget, you're not a, you know, I'm a one-woman show. So my starting budget was, you know, minuscule, like non-existent. So for me to be like, okay, let me put out ads or let me get my message out there, it was really surprising because I had to constantly be, you know, taking pictures and posting them and sharing my really private feeling thoughts and, you know, all of those, which isn't necessarily natural because you are so used to like, okay, let me write this in my journal and it's just for me. And now you're like, let me broadcast this to the whole world, or like, let me put this in my story. So it's definitely a little bit of a shift of how alarming it is to put yourself out there, I think would be the first lesson.
I agree. I realized after a while of square peg round hole, I'm gonna do it my way, as opposed to what was working, like generally like works in marketing. I had to realize that the know, like, and trust factor, like you are who, like, so I want to tell you this. I never had a desire to do stand-up paddleboard yoga. I barely want to do yoga, but because I know you, I'm like, I kind of want to try this because I feel like the know, like, and trust factor opens people up because it's not about the product. I mean, there's paddleboards everywhere. There's yoga everywhere. I live on Miami Beach. Like there's yoga everywhere. I have no desire, but when you connect with that person, which social media is the vehicle to help you connect. Like when we're on our side of our accounts being like, oh, I got to post, I am bored of myself. Like Yeah, I know. I'm bored of myself. And I'm like, God, these people are going to be like, oh, what is she talking about now? When really, it's not like that. I love checking out other people's pages and seeing what they're doing because I just feel that little extra step closer. And to get out of your head and be like, no, share it all, share the dark moments. I remember the one most epic post I made was literally me crying on my bed because entrepreneurship is mind fuck, for lack of a better word. Like, and that got so much engagement because people were like, damn, you're real. Like, you're not just some bodybuilder that lives this regimented life and you know, better than any, because it's not about being better. It's about like, what are you willing to share to let people in? And I think that's kind of one of the things that I'm so passionate about this podcast because it's like, no, like you guys don't realize, like, if you're watching from wherever and you come to Miami, now you know who you're going to come visit because you know what we do and you know, like, our personalities. That was the hardest thing for me to get through my head. Share, share, share. And I still struggle to this day. I mean, I'm a lot less inhibited, but I'm less scared. And
Well, yes, 100% everything that you said. But I also, and this is the piece that I'm always coaching myself on mindset. So that's actually a part of what I do. I have some mindset coaching, and that's kind of because it's always expanding. It's like all these things, tools, they are just tools. Yoga is a tool, paddleboarding is a tool,
right,
nutrition, mindset, they're all tools to help you become the person you want to become. They're tools to help you live a better life. And so, you know, I don't think like, okay, I just teach yoga. I think, okay, how can I use the tool of yoga or how can I use the tool of mindset coaching to help myself have a better life and to help other people have a better life? Like that's always the question behind it. And so what you said about fear and putting yourself out there and like, oh, what if this person thinks this? The thing that I've been reminding myself constantly to get over that fear is that fear is very ego-based because if you're afraid of something, right? If you're afraid, like they're all going to laugh at you, it's basically you saying, I don't want that person to not like me, or I don't want that person to not resonate with my message, or whatever it is. And who knows, maybe I'm sure there's going to be someone that listens to this podcast and thinks, oh, whatever, you know, doesn't like what we have to say. And that's fine. Like nobody has to have any opinion, but and this is where the love comes in or the service factor comes in that has to be louder because I could have said to you, oh, I'm not coming on your podcast because I could have listened to the little voices in my head, right? Like, oh, who am I to go on a podcast? Or I don't have enough followers, or I haven't been doing this long enough, or who wants to hear what I have to say, right? You could always tell yourself some kind of story, some type of limiting belief of why you shouldn't do this thing. But then at the end of the day, the service part and the love part comes in when you say, well, I'm going to be okay if somebody doesn't like it. And I'm going to be okay if somebody makes fun of it, because I also know there could be one person listening that gets this little tidbit from it where they go, oh, that helped me so much. Yes. And so it's the desire to help that one person more than you have the fear of that other person maybe laughing.
You said ego and you said service. And the one other thing that I kept thinking about was like how for us, instant gratification, like we focus on the wrong things, right? And I've learned that the views, the likes, fine, whatever. I actually get pissed off when people like my stuff. I mean, it's like you want it to boost the algorithm, but I get mad because there's usually a call to action to engage, not to buy, but to engage because I want to know who needs what. When I'm in that service mind, I get angry because I can't help more people. And when you talked about service and you talked about like hitting that one person, sometimes with our own egos where we're posting and sometimes with our own like debt of servitude in our hearts, like we don't know who's actually benefiting because we don't ever get that gratification of, oh my God, this helped me so much. But when you focus on possibilities, you know deep down exactly what you said is happening. Somebody's day was better because I do that. I listen to so many people's little lives. And I'm like, damn, he got me today. Or Gary Vee or Bradley or any of these people got me like, oh, he's so right. Or, oh, she's so right. but I'm not over there blowing up the comments like, oh my God, you're my hero. So I think as a small business owner, right, especially when, you know, the limiting belief could be followers or engagement, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm laughing about my photo bomb.
I know, because
zone
we're
back
both
here.
getting photo
Super
bombed for our
professional.
four-legged friend. Can I help you? What do you need? He's like, dude, I just want to love you. Somebody does at least. But yeah, it's like, I think what you said is so important, because the more you look at business, at least if you're me, I've gone from trying to learn from sharks who are money hungry, get the sale people, then to when you flip the script to service and love driven, that is going to win any day of the week. And it's going to create not just, oh, hoity toity fans that want to be part of a movement that they may never meet you, but raving, loyal people that will stick with you forever. And that's what I learned is the difference between a love-based model and like a financial based model. And to run a business, yes, finances are the bottom line. You have to be able to keep the lights on. You have to be able to eat and fund future projects. But if you're not coming with a, because yoga is very much about servitude and being in your own personal space to be able to help others, right? So
100%, yeah.
yeah, so if you're not operating from that, I mean, I've done it where I've given people free sessions because I know, okay, their clients didn't pay them, so they can't pay me, but they've got physical pain. Come on, this one's on me. You know what I mean? Like to act from love and servitude, or give someone a card with a coupon for a free session because you know that you value them and they've already spent thousands on you. Like that's going to go
Yeah,
such a long way.
and it's not only, and it's also going to feel in alignment, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, you have to step back sometimes and go, I could make this entrepreneurship worse than working for somebody else if I'm going crazy about outcomes, right? So if I'm only looking at outcomes and going, oh, you know, I have to get to this level, I have to get to this dollars, I can make myself crazy and hate something that I love. And that's not something I'm willing to do, because when your job is also your passion, it's, you know, it's paddleboarding, it's yoga, it's all of my favorite things. So I'm not willing to hate that. And so
Yeah.
I have to come from a place of love and servitude. And I have to come from a place of, I don't want to just attract any clients. Like, I'm not trying to hard sell anybody. If you don't want what I have to offer,
Right.
that's okay. Because what I want is the people that do want exactly what I have to offer. I want the people that are going to love my class. I want the people that are going to love being a part of the community or love working with me as a coach or whatever it is. And that's the alignment piece that feels good to me, knowing that what I'm doing is helping the people that want it, and that it feels good to me that I know I'm doing the right thing for me and for my business and for my clients. And it's just alignment, and that just has to come first. And so, yeah, sometimes it moves slowly and sometimes it picks up quickly. And I just try not to be uber focused on that outcome, and instead focused on, I'm happy with where it's at. I'm happy with the progress that it's making. I'm happy with the people that I'm working with. I have the best clients. I mean, I've met so many amazing people, and I mean, I'm lucky just for that.
Yeah. You know, it's crazy. I when you said that, I'm sitting here thinking about, I went through that. I literally out of my mouth at one point in this last couple of years said, that's it. I hate fitness. I hate fitness. I hate people. I hate people who try to do fitness. I hate all of it. I want to become a librarian, you know, like I just ended up getting so frustrated because I think I wasn't in alignment with the way I was taught. So my first introduction to online fitness, I had a coach that was very much about the bottom line, money, money, money. Yes, of course, we're running a business. Like, the money is very important. However, when I realized I was doing exactly what he told us not to do, even because I was focused on the money, and I was like, he used to say to us, don't be a trainer whore, basically saying, don't train just anybody. You need your ideal client, that, like, the way you just described. So he's like, don't just be like, I can help everybody. Like, find the people that are going to benefit from your service and the people that you enjoy working with, because there's power in choices. But when it shifted to be like, where's the numbers, where's the money, then it's like, well, it's not happening, because I'm accepting people. In the beginning, I was accepting people were not fit for the program. They I mean, it could have been mentally, could have been financially, and there's only so much you can do when someone's not ready and they sort of like force themselves, and then you realize they're not truly ready. And I'm sure you see that in life changes when you work with mindset people. Like you just can't. So then I walk around feeling a little bit disturbed, like I hate fitness. I hate people. You know, that's not why I got into this. That's not why I'm still in it after 20 years. And so I think I did a full circle as well. So when you mentioned that, I was like, oh, spot on. I did that. Like I hated what I did. And now it's like, okay, it's full circle again. The right people are coming along. I have a different level of patience. I put myself in a different mindset. And so I really honor and love what you do and what you stand for, because it's something that as an entrepreneur, like, so if you're listening, watching, whatever, and you are looking to make this kind of change, you really need to learn from our mistakes and learn like to stay true, because the people that I know, like let's just talk finances now, that are financially crushing it, they haven't swayed in their mission or their message. Maybe some of the deliveries a little different, or maybe some of their service offerings are different, or whatever, they've grown, but they never stopped honoring their core values. And I feel like when you made that switch based upon what you told me, you made that switch from where you were to where your soul wanted to be, and you just had the grit to get through the suck. I'm going to go out on a limb and just put words in your mouth and say that, like, every day now, because we're never always going to have perfect days 100% of the time, but like, you're pretty damn happy.
I am. I'm really happy. But you know what? I think the best part of this job is that you also have to do the things yourself, because I can't not practice yoga and then show up and teach yoga. I
Right.
can't not practice mindset and then show up and coach mindset. I have to do the things every day. And that's a really, really good influence on me, because I'm not going to show up to a yoga class if I didn't meditate and put myself in a good space first. I need to put myself in a space where I can create the vibe I want to create in the room. And it's the same with anything else. And so that, I think the reason I'm pretty happy now is because I have a good day on purpose. Like, I used to get out of bed, maybe when I was in the corporate job, or maybe when I was younger and didn't have the practice that I have, I would get out of bed like last second. Oh, I'm already late, grab my stuff. And then I would be, you know, whatever the day threw at me, it threw at me. If I encountered some negative things, I had a bad day. And again, very, very external, right? Just waiting to see what external things are going to happen. And there's no power in that, because maybe the train is stopped for an hour and there's nothing you can do about it, right? There's all these different things. So for me, the power position that I try to put myself in, and I try to come from, and I try to teach my clients, is have the routines, get up, meditate, work out in the morning, have the healthy shake that makes you feel good, write the appreciation list because it puts you in a good vibe. And so I do the things that put me in the place I want to be. And then of course I'm going to have a good day from that place. So it's just learning the things that work for you, and it's making them part of your routine, where it's like, I know I can put myself where I want to be.
I love that. And I really hope that those looking to make a switch that are listening feel the vibe, like, and the value of everything that you just said, because I've lived it, and I know we're well, it's all fitness related, but we're in two different worlds. Like, training could be hardcore, and yoga could be very calming. But either way, making that transition to do something that you love is the common ground. And so it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. It's like putting, like, exactly what you said, putting yourself in that space, holding yourself accountable, living what you're selling, so to speak, or providing to others. It's so crucial to keep you in alignment. And I know alignment is a word that just like keeps popping up, and a lot of people think it's like hoity-toity, but like there is a spirituality to everything that we do, whether you're spiritual or not. And you know whether you're spiritual or not if something is not making sense to you because it doesn't feel right. And especially when I consult with clients that, you know, it's usually about weight loss. It's usually like, oh, I want to lose 10, 15 pounds or whatever. I'm like, no, screw that. Get deep. Like, tell me what it really is. And usually there's something out of alignment in life that's preventing them from moving forward. So I'm sure as a business coach, business coaches can say that too. I'm sure as a mindset coach, you've come across people that it's just alignment is a huge factor. So I'm hoping that those listening and watching are just like, that makes sense. And this way, you know that you're not crazy. Like, you're not the only one that has done this, or anyone listening is going to do it or wants to do it. And I think with the rise of like the digital era, the Zooms, the online stuff, like more people are realizing that they need to make a shift to a different thing than what they were doing if their job or whatever is like no longer in person, no longer operating. Like, we all needed to shift majorly this year. And I learned the biggest lessons. I mean, on the roller coaster, I mean, there were months where I just like cried every day. Like it was like literally like, shit, 20 years. Now what? Gyms are closed. Like, think about it. A lot of us had soul sucking moments that you either came up with an idea and you got aligned. I don't really meditate, which is terrible because like you're like probably the meditation queen, but I do reflect. I can handle a couple minutes of reflection, but to get into that like twilight, I haven't gotten to that maturity level in my practice yet.
Well, here's the thing though. I don't think you have to do a traditional meditation to meditate. I think as long as you're in a space where you're clearing your mind, that's the effect. I can go out on my paddleboard and paddle for an hour, and I feel like that can be a moving meditation for me.
Oh, for
So
sure.
yes, I do, sit and actually traditionally meditate usually, but I think those other things are great too. So I would challenge you to say, if you think you don't meditate, I bet you do. Like, what are the things where your mind is clear? What are the things where you feel like this?
I can tell you. I'll
Yeah.
put it on my Instagram stories. Like, when I go to the studio, when I'm not with clients and I'll just go for me, I will get on the Pilates Cadillac or the Reformer, and like, it's a lot like what you do on the water. You have this like ebb and flow, and I'm sure it's very calming for me to just hang from bars and put my body in weird contorted positions and stretch and breathe and focus. I'm like, this is like Pilates for me as a form of meditation. And then when I teach it to people, whether I'm teaching teachers, because I train teachers, or working with a client who I know is either trying to level up with their fitness, or we use Pilates as a way to, help with injuries and things like that. It's to work in something that's meditative for you in a sense. Now, like, that is like, I just had my light bulb moment. Like, that is alignment. So I find myself, especially since like the studio has this beautiful aura, like it's just bright and beautiful and warm, and just this space is perfect. And when we had talks about maybe like even moving, I'm like, no, I love this space. But it's just everything fits. And so alignment is me walking into the Pilates studio and just tinkering around, just like the way you can like grab your little paddleboard and go out in the little ocean and be like, or bay or wherever, and just be like, yay. I guess last question, we'll wrap it up. What is, you can go one or two ways. He's like, okay, what's the question? He's like, Mom, spit it out.
He's ready.
What?
I think he's ready to answer this
He's
one.
like, either that or he wants dinner. What is either the advice you would give to your younger self if you knew now what you know, if you knew it back then, or if you could intercept yourself back then, or you could say what advice is like hands down the number one thing that a stranger who's struggling with entrepreneurship or taking the leap needs to know?
I think they would be almost the same answer, actually, because what I would say is you have everything you need inside of you. You are more than enough, and you don't need to be afraid, because one of two things is going to happen. You're going to go out and be really successful, or you're going to go make some mistakes and learn from them. And either way, it's just a net win. And so I think it's a matter of shifting the fear. So I used to be afraid of doing the things, right? Like, what if I fail at this, or what if other people don't like it, or whatever. But now it's like, I'm afraid of not doing the thing. I'm afraid of, it's like that Wayne Dyer quote, don't die with your music still inside you. That's my fear now. I'm afraid of not doing the things.
That is a great quote. Don't die with the music still inside you. Wow. So lay it out there, people. Go out, lay it out on the table. Have no fear. It's easier said than done, when you're spitting it out as a one-liner. But just, there's comfort in knowing that other people have gone through this. There's comfort in knowing that you could always reach out to somebody else who has gone through it. And then there are people that actually care to be that stable force or that encouraging force. So with that being said, tell us everything, how we can get in contact with you, how we can, if someone's traveling to Miami or lives in Miami, how can we paddleboard with you? Like, what's your stats?
Sure. So my website is turquoisefloatingyoga.com. My Instagram is turquoisefloatingyoga. I know it's a hard word to spell. It's TURQUOISE. If you're like, how do I spell? That's usually the look I get when I say turquoise. Yeah. But yeah, those are the best two ways. And once you go on there, you'll see all my other channels and, forums and emails and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. And then for the Miami people, where exactly are you based?
So for paddleboard yoga, I offer lessons at Bill Bags and then also down at Blue Lagoon Farm down in Homestead.
Homestead. I still have to make it down there. There's like a berry farm and all of that. Like I still need to make it down to the country. So that would be awesome. Awesome. Cool. Well, look us up if you are visiting in the area or you just need to get together, grab somebody, grab coffee, grab a Pilates class, grab a yoga class, and let us know. We're so excited to be able to bring this value to others. And I'm so excited that you are willing and able to come on the podcast. And I hope that there's more that we're going to do in the future. Maybe I'll come out there and risk, I could swim, so I'm not going to drown, but risk looking like a fool more than anything. And I will try. I can't paddleboard yet.
I would love to have you
paddleboard, but we can always try.
It would be so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on. It was so much fun chatting with you.
Same here. You're so welcome, and we'll chat again soon.
Sounds good.